Society hates the power that lies within black bodies. Whiteys want to be the center of the world, but they know the black soul gives rhythm to the universe's heartbeat, and they powerless to stop it, so they won't stock in it. They cardiac arresting us for their profit, and these prophets propagate that we need them to be prosperous, preposterous. We built nations centuries ago that ain't demolished yet, and the plan to civilize Kemet was written on papyrus thread. We were leading kingdoms in the world before Barack led, and now they try to kill young kings and queens in Flint Town with the water lead. But if we combined our souls, the results might shock us. We can see God and raise the dead when we align our chakras. Assalamu alaikum to the nation that popped X. Assalamu alaikum to teaching generations hatred. Brothers killing brothers been going on, it ain't stopped yet. Whitey's killing brothers been going on, it ain't stopped yet. The Willie Lynch letter might be a hoax, but the truth's there. Fear is the biggest killer spread and love is the best bet. Shit, I'ma speak the truth, I ain't afraid to get popped next.
Yeah. One time. Yeah. 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 Shine. Yeah. Yo. Who do you think you are? Describe that plainly to me. Tell me all about your life and explain it to me. I help you understand everything I see. Tattoo your thoughts all on my skin until it's all I see. White girl named Paige, 5 more put me on. She was a bit outside the line, so instantly I was drawn. Revolutionary thoughts, I always dropped them on her. She was fly when she was bent, but sharp around the corners. Late at night, I would see her tell her plans of revolution. Sign, seal, deliver with the ply and execution. If I lost her, I would lose her, cause she knows too much. But she's easier to read, she would show too much. Completely naked out in public and I still love her. These days, most rappers be ashamed to touch her. Mama told me not to ever judge her by a cover. I brought her by the crib to chill, but she ain't stay for supper. With me, she's home, but away, she's a nomad. Have you seen her? I've been looking for my notepad. Yeah. Have you seen her? I've been looking for my...
In my heyday, my AK is fire resolve. Disabled for the safety, for battle, it's time to mob. Got soldiers in the trenches, white people that's going missing. Did I mention we giving early flights to visit God? Yep, platoons full of goons marching in. Step, my melanin charged by the sun. I'm the one, I am Neo, I will veto, it's finito. I'm Magneto, Malcolm X-Men, not a yes-men. Flexing, we set trend, make next spin. No fam, no next kin, I stand a blessing. I am what a man, a revolutionary. Dark as Coca-Cola, but no the soda until it's over. My clover roam like a Motorola, steady looking over my shoulder. Black identity extreme. The Central Blend had a dream. Black identity extreme. The Central Blend had a dream. Then Tamir had a dream. But the cops. Try that again. Sandra Blend had a dream. Then Tamir had a dream. But the cops.
All of the pain that's inside of my mind. Peace is so hard to find. It's a revolution. Oh, revolution. It's a revolution.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Hold on, I want to make a villain intro like this. Yeah, I'm geek. All right. Yo, thank you for everybody who is in here right now. My name is Will Porter. This is the very first episode of Palatable Dialogues, presented to you by Black and Mayberry. You know what I'm saying? The wonderful Miss Tanya Taylor started this organization. You know what I'm saying? Their mission is combating racism through the arts. And so naturally, I came across an ad by them maybe like 2 years ago now, and because I create artwork that definitely touches on political issues, social issues, I figured it was a no-brainer to collaborate with Tanya and Black and Mayberry. And so, yeah, we're bringing y'all something really fresh. These are conversations that I have with my artist friends and my family a lot, though not necessarily within the the confines of like communal spaces and stuff like that. So I'm super excited, just the right amount of nervous, but it's like good nervousness. So I'm excited to hear y'all perspectives. I'm excited to share. So again, my name is Will Porter. I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, and I currently live in New York. I have been an artist now for 29 years. You feel me? Been painting and creating art since I was 4, and I currently teach at an after-school program out in Jamaica, Queens, and am otherwise a full-time artist. And so I specialize in portraiture and I specialize in agitprop. And so, for anybody who follows my social media, or to anybody who I've had more than a 2 minute long conversation with about art, I'm certain that I've mentioned the word agitprop, right? So, agitprop means agitation and propaganda. And I was initially introduced to it through an artist named Emory Douglas. And so, Emory Douglas was the illustrator for the Black Panther newspaper. And so all of the imagery with police rendered as pigs, the FTP or F the police rhetoric, even things, and granted, what I'm about to mention next wasn't created by him. Though, if you think back to the World Wars, the Rosie the Riveter imagery, so anything that will incite excitement or encouragement or inspiration among a certain group of people while also calling to accountability those same systems that are making these people to feel less than excited and underrepresented and things of that nature. So, it's always been within my nature as a human outside of being an artist to agitate. I've always been coined as a smart aleck since I was a kid. And so once I was made aware that there was an art form or a genre rather that specifically dealt with agitation, I'm like, oh, I'm all up, right? So to speak a bit about the piece that is not to say the reason that we're here for this conversation, though it definitely has gained some momentum over the years as far as what it's what it's done for me personally and some of the conversations that this piece has sparked. So the piece that we're talking about tonight is called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? And I created this piece back in 2017, and it features a smiling Aunt Jemima, right, as you can see. And so back in 2017, I want to give you guys a brief synopsis as to what's going on in my life at the time where I made this. So 2017, I've been in New York for a year and a month. And so when I first got to New York, my first job was as a dog walker. So was doing that, enjoying myself, making good money. And I don't know necessarily what clicked, though after a year, I was convinced that it was time for me to do my first solo show in New York. So I've done solo shows before in Virginia. I've done exhibitions that were cooperative out in DC and Maryland. And now that I was living in New York, I'm like, it was time for me to do a solo show here. So January of 2017, I started looking at venues, looked at some venues in Manhattan, looked at some in Brooklyn, ended up settling on a spot that's in Bushwick called the Living Gallery. And so scheduled the show for March 19th, 2017. And that gave me, a couple months to create some pieces. So for the show that I was doing, there was a theme. And so the title of the show was In Theaters Now. And there were upwards of 30, 35 pieces total in the show. Of those 35, 8 of them were movie posters. The piece that we're talking about tonight being one of them. And so, as an agitator and as an African Asiatic so-called black man living in America amongst other, European white people, whatever, there is inevitably, especially dealing with the art community, because it has these class systems, if you will, and it's always, or not always, but typically suggested to be catered to a specific demographic. You know what I'm saying? Not typically being people from the hood, right? Um, so when I was gearing up to create these pieces, I was thinking from a mindset of understanding how many European people are tethered to the artist community, whether it be by way of them owning the gallery space or curating the space. Um, I could go on and on, right? So there was this desire and this need for me to not shy away from talking about racial dynamics, to not shy away from talking about different social ills that would typically make people uncomfortable. But that's the whole premise of agitprop, is to agitate and to follow that up with propaganda, with positive imagery or stimulating imagery. So when I was making this piece, I was very fascinated with the idea of taking minstrel images or people who have become caricatures of real men, real women. And I wanted to play around with the dynamics of how these people exist within a social status. And so, with this piece, because it is a movie poster, I wanted to use that to my advantage in creating a script for it. So as I wrote it, Aunt Jemima has a daughter, and one day Aunt Jemima's daughter reached out to her mom, and super excited, she's like, "Yo, mom, I have some wonderful news. Though I would love for you to prepare a dinner so that I can come to the house, I can share this news with you, and we can have a great meal." Right? So her mom obliged, and they agreed to have this meal. On the day of, Aunt Jemima's daughter shows up to the house, and her daughter brings a guest, right? And lo and behold, the guest that she brings is who she then introduces to her mom as her new fiance, right? So her daughter comes home with David Rockefeller, you know what I'm saying, on her arms. And so uh, the night continued, and as they're sitting down to have small talk, have dinner, it comes up in conversation that David Rockefeller has allegedly had upwards of 8 or 9 heart transplants during his lifetime, right? And so I write in the story that Aunt Jemima is offended because she had a son that had lost his life because he wasn't able to make a donors list, and is triggered by David Rockefeller almost flippantly speaking about his level of access, whether monetarily or resources otherwise, that will put him in a position to be able to have that many costly surgeries back to back throughout his lifetime. And so, along with what I'm sharing, that puts us in a place of where the image is the still shot, along with a caption that's on the painting that also is leaning into this idea of it being a movie, right? So, if we could pull the image of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner back up, I want to show you all some dialogue that's happening between Aunt Jemima and David Rockefeller. That it's certainly anytime that I'm creating a piece, especially if it's a piece that is intended to agitate, I certainly always want to put some lighthearted moment in it. One being her smile, right? So she's super relaxed. She's smiling as big as you've ever seen her on any syrup container, right? And so there's a dialogue happening between David Rockefeller and Aunt Jemima, where David fella is saying, this last transplant is the last one, I promise. And he's screaming out, Mama, no. And Aunt Jemima is responding with, yes, Mama knows, right? So again, I wanted to take what have likely been accepted as power dynamics between races, with Aunt Jemima being the help, being a domestic, and David Rockefeller being assumed a philanthropist, a wealthy man by American wealth standards. And I wanted to position these two dynamics in one space, giving the upper hand to the side that may be assumed as weak more often than not. And I wanted to see where that would take some dialogue, right? So, outside of me creating this work that I feel as though is very important for me to reconcile some things within my own personal life or for the communities that I belong to, it sparked an idea to engage more people in this conversation. And so certainly to fill you guys in on a bit of what at least one of the goals are for this conversation, is that you know I um I want to highlight representation to start. And so ideally, in my mind, in highlighting representation, I want to figure out from you all what visual media, and it can be a painting, it can have been a film, it can be photography. I'm very interested in knowing what visual media has made you feel the most positively represented and why, right? And so the reason that, and the question is on the screen for you all. Um, yeah, let's let that sit there for a while in case anybody wants to jot that down. What visual media, film, art, photography, etc., has made you feel most positively represented and why? And as you all sit with that, I'll speak a little bit about my own answers to that question and why it is that I posed it. So I am one. I'm very interested in finding out if there are intersections with how different groups of people, whether different genders, different identities, different races, different cultural identities, whether there are intersections in how people feel positively represented, and ideally being able to better shape communities of people based on how we would want to be represented, right? And so um, one thing, and I'll attempt to pick one from each. So representation in film early on for me, I say probably the first film that made me feel like there was a broader picture to how our community is portrayed was definitely Coming to America. I think that came out maybe 93, 94, or something like that. So I was, a really young kid. I was a toddler, though seeing men in African garb and a massive amount of wealth belonging to someone who looked like myself. It was just refreshing and it was fun. Even though I didn't necessarily, excuse me, at the age that I was seeing it, I didn't know that there was opposite representation of us, right? Because I'm a kid. Though I knew that it was excitable for me to see us represented in that way. As far as photography, there is a photo that I've loved forever. Shame on me for not remembering the photographer's name. Though I'm gonna describe the photo. I believe that it was taken in Chicago in the 50s, maybe 40s or 50s. And it's these young men, maybe four young dudes. They gotta be, I say at most, maybe like from 6 to 8, right? Like young kids, but they're impeccably dressed. You know what I'm saying? Like suit and tie, long pea coats on, and they're like leaning against this like town car. And yeah, I just remember seeing that photo, even though it's in black and white. I remember imagining that this was possibly the life of my uncles and my great uncles that I admire just in how they carried themselves. And I remember being excited to see young men, especially men that excuse me, not men, but like young boys rather, that were carrying themselves on a path to be young men, to be presentable and respectable men. And and then in art, honestly, I can't say that I've ever felt positively represented through art, which is one of the main reasons that I make the type of art that I do. And so, I'm always really excited to see any visual where there is some positive representation of us. And I'd be lying if I said there wasn't an extra kick of excitement and enjoyment when that same piece of artwork can be a tool to offend. Because I'm very intentional about offending. And so if I can offend, especially a group of European men or women, to make them get a point without physically harming them, I'm all over it, right? Because I very much enjoy having conversations that involve emotional intelligence, and I am certain after multiple conversations that I've had that art is a phenomenal vehicle to do that. Because you're talking about a tangible idea that can make you feel something, though is 100% benign and actually having touched you or impacted you in a way that will cause you to lose life, breath, energy, anything of that nature. And so, especially to be talking about race relations when there have been a lot of people who look like myself, and I'm sure a lot more of you in the room, that when we can combat bodies hitting the floor that look like us with um, combating that and putting um, either symbols or people that we hold in high regard in compromising positions, I think that does something phenomenal, and it frees up some space in the minds of myself, other people who may be disenfranchised and underneath the thumb of different systems. It gives us this freeing space to kind of be exonerated, if you will, to have a bit more courage in how it is that we engage with people on a daily basis. And so, yeah, so the first question, again, I'll repeat it, is what visual media, be it film, art, photography, etc., has made you feel most positively represented? And I want to go to the chat too. I hope I'm not missing anything. Let's see. Oh, somebody knows the name of that that photo. Negro boys on Easter morning. Thank you. Thank you, Key. Hey, that's fire. All right, let me read some of these comments now. Hey, I'm feeling the love. All right, so one time for Key Nicole, phenomenal artist. I'm gonna give some shout outs to some people I see in here. A phenomenal artist. Get to know her, please. Hey, shout out to Darlene. What up, though? Phenomenal artist as well. Dr. Barbara Jackson. I'm biased. That's my cousin. Shout out to Dr. Barbara Jackson. Um, Super phenomenal. The poem that played in the intro of this conversation was by that phenomenal young lady and my cousin and another mentor of mine. Um, let's see. So Russell Lee is the photographer that for that iconic image with the young man um, with my toddler. So all right. So Darlene says, "I'm with my toddler, so speaking is complicated, but the Renaissance tour includes people of all shapes, sizes, races, and genders. It's affirming. You you hear it in the music, and it's translated in the visuals. Awesome, nice. Let's see." Okay. Ben Rose says, for me, it was the film Juice. Nice. Okay. Nice. Um, Darlene says, The Wiz, taking a white story, with white characters and bringing it to an iconic black neighborhood with iconic black celebrities makes it something that black people can relate to. Then Ben says these days it's Boomerang. Shout out to Boomerang. Ooh, Bisa Butler. Wow, phenomenal. Okay, her quotes are amazing. I agree. She's a phenomenal artist and portrays us beautifully. Nice. Okay. Nah, I agree with those 100%, yo. Um, I like that you, Ben, that you mentioned juice because another one of the questions that I have, and I'll pose all of them, and I'll repeat them when necessary, because I don't want to bombard any of us with a lot of questions or any information. Um, the one of the questions that I was bringing up, and it's making me think of it now because you brought up Juice. A phenomenal movie. I love how that movie is filmed. It's a definitely a cult classic within our community. I've seen that movie a bunch of times, and it's also very. It's a very true vision of things that happen in the hood. And at the same time, of course, in hindsight, because this movie came out in the 90s, I think about how many opportunities that we've had with phenomenal actors to maybe pivot from those very uh unfortunately relatable stories of the hood, of hustling, right? Skipping school. Um and I wanted to pose to everyone, is there any or like excuse me, where have you seen yourself, your community, or your culture represented poorly, right, or negatively, right? Because like there are so many ways where I feel as though our community is one of three things: we're represented poorly, we're represented negatively, or we're not represented at all, right? And so I'm curious to know, with anyone that's in here, are there things, and it could be a guilty pleasure, right? The example I'll use is the show Friends, right? Not a lot of black people that are even featured on the show, even as, I guess, um, random characters, or definitely not recurring roles, right? Though I know people in our community who love the show and can relate to it, even though we aren't represented, right? Or I've never seen Game of Thrones. Every time I see a clip for it, though, I see some pale skinned European person, silver hair, blonde hair, right? So, but though I know a lot of people in our community watch it, right? So I'm curious to know, are there ways in which or are there media that exist where we aren't represented that you all like chime into? And Tanya, I
Hey,
see you on
Will,
the screen. Yo, what's up?
I'm going to chime in. I'm supposed to be the moderator, but that question really got me because growing up,
Mm,
I'm going to say the entire genre of anything that was magical, mystical, sci-fi had
mm,
next to zero black representation. Apart from Star Trek, it was pretty much fantasy. We were not really written into much fantasy.
mhm,
It now, most recently, with The Little Mermaid now being a black female character, my daughter's having a lot more access to mainstream movies that do have a few more characters that are black. But when I was growing up, it was like, where are the movies that allow black children to be imaginative? So we could find the
mm,
history books, but we couldn't find things that just allowed us to like let our imagination run wild and just free and be in fiction.
mm. Wow. Yo, that's powerful because that's not. Wow, nah, because that's super, super true. And it's very important, especially for myself as an artist. You know what I'm saying? I've always, thankfully, I've had a mom that encouraged whatever I wanted to do artistically, though I can definitely vouch for how important it is as a youth, and especially growing up in a world like we do, to have some excitement about like folklore or like some majestic thing that can be bigger than life that doesn't have to be reality. You know what I'm saying? And I definitely feel as though by lack of representation that we don't get as many opportunities to have heroes or like fantastical warriors and princesses and things of that nature. It's something that certainly is gaining some momentum now. Um, though at the same time, that is even it's other things being mixed in, whether it's which is great, right? Though I always find that whenever it is that us as a Asiatic or African or so-called Black people can begin to get some positive representation, that there are other communities that are folded into it at the same time. So it's made to be this all-inclusive um, opportunity. Um, but yeah, so I'm seeing some answers in the chat, and I'll go and look at those. So let's see. Word. So Darlene is saying poorly the Friday series, the movies Friday. Shout out to Ice Cube. So she said, love the movies, but they aren't the best representations of the Black communities. That's valid. Right. Also poorly Harry Potter. Where are the Black people? Where are the Black people? We wizards, you know what I'm saying? We magicians. Um Dr. Barbara Jackson says, I love classic Black TV shows, but recently I've realized that the narratives and storylines are stereotypically negative. That's that's very true. Um, she says, for example, Fresh Prince. We please tell me more about that. Because I feel as though when I think about the Fresh Prince and even shows like Martin, I think when I think about Martin, that's more problematic to me in hindsight than something like The Fresh Prince because of the colorism, right? He was always trying to play Pam. Pam is so gorgeous then and now. Gina pretty too, though Pam, come on now. So I'm interested to hear what things are problematic for you with Fresh Prince. Dallas says guilty pleasure are period pieces, but Bridgerton brought it all together for me. Yo, Bridgerton. Oh my God. I've had multiple people ask me, have I seen this show? I have not. There's something about seeing anybody in like colonial garb or like ruffled feather. I don't. It makes me cringe. I don't like it. It makes me feel like somebody's about to call me boy or nigger. Um, but people like it. You know what I'm saying? I guess, and I'm just one opinion, right? I guess that speaks to what Tanya was just saying as far as us having spaces to exist within fantasy or royalty, right? Things that are a bit bigger than life or reality. Um, which just aren't my personal cup of tea, though I advocate for them being a cup of tea for everyone who wants it. Let's see. Darlene also says, as it relates to poorly, The Office. I love the show, but the one Black person is just sitting in a corner with an attitude about work. Hey, no, that's very true. Um, and then Tanya says, so true, Dr. Barbara. There are so many shows that are just bad examples for us, despite being entertaining. Um, nearly every situation. Oh, Ben Rose says nearly every situational comedy in the 80s. Yeah, very, very, very true. Dr. Barbara Jackson says any narrative that is black but written to a white facing audience. So any narrative that is quote unquote black but written to a white facing audience. Dang, that is true about a lot of shows. Um, awesome. Yeah, yo, if I could, if you're down, Shay, those of you who have responded, I would love to add y'all to the chat when we start not start answering these questions, but yeah, like I actually would love to add y'all to the chat because I think that'd be easier than reading through the chat. All right, let's see. Fresh Prince, misogyny. I'm assuming that's black exploitation for Black's L. And the idea that black men only care about certain things, women, Jordan's, money. And even Uncle Phil, he was a lawyer who we never saw at work. Was he the first person to work remotely? Hey, shut up. Hey, that is hilarious. Just a sec. Um, I'm sorry, that just took me out. Yeah, is there if there's anyone who wants to join, Shay, I would love for you to join, but certainly you don't have to. But there's like a stage that we can invite you to join the conversation. And Tanya, if you could real quick, like, do I send her the link that I have, or are you able to include her on your side? And pardon me, Tanya. Shay is Dr. Barbara Jackson. My fault. Gotcha. Is he the first person that worked remotely? Nah, that's actually hilarious because I'm literally thinking back and trying to picture Uncle Phil at work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there was one episode where I remember him in a courtroom, but like so few and far between. That is hilarious.
Yo,
Hey, what up, cuz?
what's up, cuz?
Word, yeah, that was hilarious, and it's always funny to think about, like, because I watch that show all the time. You know what I'm saying? But like when people bring up things that you have access to and you see all the time, but just never notice. Like I didn't notice that he had this prestigious career, but we don't never see him at work.
Work, like you said, like work adjacent. Like they dress up and go to work dinners and like, yeah, there was one episode where he was in the courtroom,
Yeah,
but yeah, like, but the bigger issue that I have with that show is really the misogyny though. Like,
yeah,
grew up thinking, all right, Will is so dope. Like he's a dope character. He's always fresh, but he was really
yeah.
always clowning the all. Like there was one way to be black to him, so he was all
Yeah,
like, and so
yeah,
he was putting Carlton in this sort of like bucketed category of you're not black enough. He was continuously reinforcing this idea that black was a certain way, even though
right,
by living with these people who were not the quintessential definition of blackness. Like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, he definitely championed this almost hype beast idea of blackness. Of, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all were saying in the chat, like it gotta come with the Jordans, like it gotta come with having this type of rap with women. So now that's valid.
but
And
there were parts where he challenged that narrative, like the whole episode where he had the Rubik's cube, and we found
mm,
brilliant. Like it challenged certain things too, and then the famous scene with the dad that you replicated years later, the poem, like it,
yeah,
idea that
hmm,
black men cry and black men can be emotional. So it had good parts too, but it also had very
right. Nah, I agree. I agree. And yo, ideally, there are some people in the chat that I'm not familiar with. I don't know who's like um outside of the people that I know, like who's European or outside of African Asiatic, you know what I'm saying, or person of color. Because what I honestly do want are perspectives outside of our own. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be in like an echo chamber. Um,
yeah.
because I'm really curious to hear, like, the same question for you all, like what visual media made you feel like most positively represented? Because ideally I want to see if we were to put these positive ideals into one figurative space, like are there intersections? is what we want existing in the same space. I think is this Lee that's joined in.
We got somebody else.
Oh wait, they
Disappeared.
yeah,
Wait,
somebody was in and they're out
there,
now.
there I am.
Ah, okay, we can hear you.
Now,
We can't see.
oh, Tanya, did you let me in? Tanya, did you let me in?
Yes, you're in. I'm not sure what's going on with your camera.
I can see me. Can you guys see me? Oh yeah, I see. I'm just
You're.
non-existent there.
Don't
Can
say
you?
it. Don't say you're just left.
There you are.
Hey, that's
I
hilarious.
must
Hey,
be.
what up, Lee?
Hey, what's up, Will? Hey, Doctor, how
Hey,
you
nothing
doing?
much,
Yeah,
man.
well,
I'm doing awesome.
Oh, good. Um, now, when you say what we felt represented us very well, are you talking about me as a white person, or you?
Yo, quite honestly, and I'm glad you asked, because for anyone who knows me, I asked this question to a random white person on the train today, and he had the same, and not to say y'all are the same, but he asked me the same follow-up question, like,
Yeah.
in what way do you mean? And what I said to him, I was like, literally any way you feel comfortable with, whether it's socially, at your job, familially, you know what I'm saying? Anything that you've looked at, and let's say that on behalf of your family, if there was like a film or a photo that would best um represent you all, that you would hang up in your house or what have you, like, yeah, I'm curious to know what those media are.
Well, I think generally speaking, anytime white people are portrayed in movies, it's let's face it, it's typically at the expense of somebody else,
Hmm.
or we're the white savior. So I mean, Tanya and I joke about it all the time. You'll get some white guy in the middle of Japan, Tom Cruise, who's never been there before in his life, and he suddenly turns up, and you've got all of these sword masters who have been living the sword for 40 years, and he turns up, and in 6 weeks' time, he's like whooping everybody. So it's
Yeah.
like that's pretty much white people in every film. I mean, but if I go outside of that and I look at films, if I look at films and media that represents us as a family, so I'm going to, you know, things that I want my daughter and my son. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Tanya's husband. So when I say my children, I'm talking about our children. So when I look at, things that I want them to see,
Hmm.
Gordon Parks as a photographer is
Hmm.
just next level. I mean, we see these photographs are so beautiful. Um, all of those representations. Other than that, in art, I think we had a conversation about this recently, Will.
Hmm.
Tanya and I, we love art. We go to the museums in, Rome and Italy, and well, I mean, everywhere we go to museums. And representation for Black people is pretty poor, if at all.
Hmm.
So our objective is, Tanya and I, we've been making our own art that represents Black people in a positive light, or kind of like an agitprop context. So it kind of really makes people think. So um, yeah, so that I also liked Blackish. I feel like it hit on some points as a slightly blended family.
Yeah.
Uh, so so I keep getting a load of text coming in.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gordon Parks has got to be at the top of the tree, and anything Debbie Allen does. I mean, Debbie Allen's on point. You know what I mean? If you look at her theater productions, I get the
Yeah.
benefit of. In fact, this is a really good one. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but Hot Chocolate Nutcracker. That is,
Not familiar.
I went to see the Nutcracker about 20 years, and it was like, oh. I kind of fell asleep a bit. But Hot Chocolate Nutcracker,
Yeah.
they took that opera play, and Debbie turned it into a black version of it, and she does that across her work. Like she did Oliver Twist, she did a twist that was based down in the South, and it was like she takes these ones that are kind of like a little bit old, a little bit boring, and she makes them super cool. So yeah, so Gordon Parks, Debbie Allen, um, they're probably at the top of the tree as far as representation that I want my children to see and to see themselves in.
No, that's
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Lee.
that.
All right.
Your name is Lee.
So say again.
Your name is Lee. You went out.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Yes, my name is Lee. Yes.
Oh yeah, nice to meet you, Lee.
Thank you.
Yeah, your comment about Italy really resonates with me. It made me smile because I grew up in Italy, and
Oh,
one of the very first experiences that I ever had in terms of like realizing something was off with representation in art and representation in film and pretty much across any genre of media was an experience I had standing underneath those frescoes at the Sistine Chapel, where I realized there were no Black people there.
yeah. Yeah.
Sort of
I know.
this spiral of like an emotional experience, but also realizing that that meant something in terms of how I'm represented in art, what that means broadly speaking in terms of society and how people see me on the social landscape. And so that actually set my trajectory as a researcher. Um, but to counter that, to answer your question, Phil, um, my household was filled with a lot of dope representations. Like I grew up
Mhm.
watching The Cosby Show. I grew up watching Sanford and Son. I grew up watching Good Times, and I always liked the sister on Good Times, Thelma. I think she
Yeah.
one of the first visual representations to me of like a beautiful Black woman. Like this is
Yeah.
what beauty is and what beauty means. So when I
Mm.
was, a 13-year-old girl trying to find myself in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and
Mhm.
like the reinforcement of the fact that I had value and I had place and that I
Mhm.
was of Thelma. Um,
Yeah.
so that was probably the first for me.
Hey, but nah, that's valid because shout out to Thelma. There was a lot of beautiful representation, like between even the mom too. You know what I'm saying? The fact that they was all wearing their natural hair, when nobody
Yeah.
kicked up their makeup, like they was just
Oh,
fly. You feel me? They was just fly. Willona, what was her? What was the friend's name? Was it
Walona.
Willona? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, yeah. Word. All right. So, I left a easier question last. You know what I'm saying? Which is just simply like, what do you represent? You know what I'm saying? And so um, you can think on that. I want to share a bit first. About what I think about it personally, because the people that I've asked so far, yo, like I don't know, like I've asked some people and they didn't know. They were just like I don't know. So I'll start right. Um, within I'll start within my workplace first, right? Because I think it's kind of funny. I've become the voice, right? So like when they need somebody to corral the kids, like, hey, Will, use your voice. Hey, they gonna listen to you, bro. So like that's something I represent, both like figuratively and literally. Sometimes being a voice for other people through my art or my literature. Um, within my family, I represent, and this is only what I think. You would have to ask the rest of my family, but I would I would assume I represent trailblazing. And I think in our own ways we all do. Though I would say like there aren't necessarily a lot of people in my immediate family, especially that are in New York. So I definitely think that I represent risk, like taking risk. Um, and within my art, I represent um, advocating again, like for voices that maybe can't speak for themselves. I represent honesty. I represent studentship. I think those are probably like the ones that I really fight for. Um, and so yeah, like I would love to hear what some of you think about it. Though if you don't either have an answer or feel comfortable talking, please let that be something you think on throughout the week. Because quite frankly, it, just based off the premise of this conversation and why we're here, to kind of remind if you're not aware, like we're working very hard. Myself, Black and Mayberry, Tanya Lee, Dr. Barbara Jackson, other people may be joined in here. We're doing work to push the needle and further conversation. And in doing so, you know what I'm saying, like in us being here, I think it's super important in lieu of us making change to know what you represent, right? Like if not on a community level, what you represent in your household,
Mhm.
right? What do you represent at your job? What do you represent in your friend group? Um, because I think then y'all honestly asking yourself that question, if you don't ask it often, may make you rearrange your friend group. You're
Mm.
like, dang, like these people don't represent what I want to represent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying I'm this and I'm hanging around that, right? So, yeah, I would love to, Shay, definitely since you're in the chat. But if anyone else wants to chime in, I would love to hear.
Yeah, that's a powerful, powerful question because I feel like it forces us to center ourselves in the now. Because
Hmm.
like when we're within our family, like within a family context, or if we're in our job, we're focused on the task at hand, right? Not necessarily the purpose that we have, the bigger picture purpose that we have in being there. Um,
Hmm.
and so, like for me, in terms of like my family unit and my workplace sort of positionality, I feel like I represent the same things on both fronts,
Hmm.
which is the courage to challenge and the courage to question.
I
So
agree.
I've always been that person, I think, in my family, my immediate family, and then my extended family to kind of push the envelope and ask why, or I don't understand, or force
Hmm.
people to give me an explanation for doing the same things over and over and over again.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, like, tell me why. Why does it make sense? And then sometimes we realize it doesn't make sense. It's just tradition.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
but the same thing goes for the workplace. So in the field that I work in, I'm in the arts and culture field. I'm an arts and culture researcher, and I help organizations understand their biases and help them understand what their audiences need and want. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm the typically, or a lot of times, I should say, the only Black person at the table, and so they look for, well, what do Black people think? Um,
Hmm.
and so that aspect of being the voice sometimes becomes challenging, because a lot of times I feel like white folks rely on me to be that voice and to also educate them. And I think the burden of educating sometimes is I don't want to take that on, like educate yourself, right? Um, but I challenge them to do that. So in that space, I'm the person that challenges and says, I'm not here to teach you the history of race relations or racial disruption. I'm not here to teach you the role play in that, but I am here to let you know how I've been impacted. My community is not a monolith, but I can tell you stories that I've been told about people in my community as a whole, or people within my immediate circle. I can tell you stories about how they've been impacted, but it's up to you to challenge yourself to go into that space of change, and disruption on your part. That's not my job. Um, but I challenge them to do that, and I invite them to allow me to assist in the process, but I'm not
Yeah.
taking the process on, right? So
Right.
I think that's my role. I'm the person that challenges and questions.
Nice. Yo, thank you.
We got
Yeah, I believe brother Ben Rowe came in next, and then Miss Dallas. We would love to hear from you too.
Nice to meet everybody. Nice to see you again. Well, before I say something,
Yeah.
say that painting that should be a feature film. I'm a,
Mm.
and I don't know. Well, my wife just came in. She's talking
Yeah,
to.
yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah, it should be a feature film. The imagery, it should be literal. Everything that's in that painting should be on a screen, literally.
Thank you, brother.
That's how it should be. Um, I like to answer that question about what do I represent. I think as I'm sitting here and I'm totally observing. I'm forgetting everything that I do in my life, and I'm getting totally involved in the conversation, which I'm glad I'm able to do. But like I said, I'm an actor. So when I go to work, I'm starting to realize that I'm representing integrity, professionalism, and the highest notions of what that's about, and that's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about that. And that also answers the other question about when I felt myself represented, even though it's kind of a visual medium, but it's more of a audio, like theater.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing, so it's pretty much been roles that I would like to see myself in. I realize how much I don't pay attention to the things that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
I grew up watching, it's a classic, it's a classic, it's a classic. But why?
Yeah.
And now, since all I really want to watch is documentaries, then I'm starting to reject most of that stuff. And but at home, I guess you have to ask my wife, but I think that I represent. I guess I represent. I won't say the standard, but somebody who is trying to figure out how to be the head of the household without ever having seen the head of the household.
Mm.
Like a constant learning experience every single day. And it's mess up, you succeed, like anything. And then you realize that people who were your parents at this age were growing up. So you can't fight against them. They were still growing up and they had to be responsible for these people. So I kind of try to look at myself as somebody who's still learning. So I guess I would say I see myself as a student of life. Not to sound cliche, but I try to look at it like that. And I could always learn.
Wow. Hey, thank you, Ben. You know what I'm saying? Hey, genuinely, man, you are appreciated. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to put that man on blast, but I had the pleasure of teaching his son in after school. You know what I'm saying? And like, just based off
down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just down here. He wanted me to do something with his basketball.
yo, so super talented for one, man. But like real talk, and I'm not just saying this to get brownie points, man. Like just off the strength of how your son and your daughter's interacting at school, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm 100% cheering, you know what I'm saying, for what it is that you're doing and it's working. You know what I'm saying? Because like, bro, man, your daughter has not been in any of my classes, but she comes to my class every day. That Darren was in there. Like, where's my brother? Like, Mr. Will, is Darren here? Like, so like, yo, it's super sweet, man. Like, leader is definitely in that school. So I commend you, man, for what I can see, for sure, man.
A portion of the credit, I only can take a portion of the credit. My wife was really
for sure.
It's like when my oldest, remember Julian, when he was little and he was going to learn how to read.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. I was reading when I was 2. I don't recall ever learning to read.
Yeah.
I didn't know Dr. Seuss books were for kids to learn how to read. I thought they were nonsense. Until they were in school, Then I said, "What do you use it for?" I didn't know that. And so when I'm seeing Julian is like in pre-K, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen because I don't know how to teach him to write. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Teach. I don't know what that means. And I watch my buddy teach his dude how to read, and now all of them are excellent readers. And
Wow.
so she's like the person that you see, those kids that you see, I have to say that I don't. But
Hey, that's
she's
awesome.
who is like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
Hey, one time for you and moms, man. That's awesome, bro. Hey, that's what's up, bro. Hey, thank you so much for sharing, man.
No problem. No problem. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Hey, no doubt. Thank you, bro. Yo, Miss, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Miss Dallas? Or is
Yes,
it Lee?
Ella. A lot of people
Dallas?
don't get that right. I'm like, it's just like
Yo, thank you so much
I'm
for.
so honored to be here and listening to all of you speak. It feels comfortable. It feels like home. I did want to touch on something that was it Darlene, Dolores, Lena did bring up about the complicated mixed heritage dynamic. So that's like a whole nother conversation that we could spend
Right.
another hour and a half on later. But I wanted to acknowledge that in the statements that she brought up. And it seems like we're kind of on a theme here. I'm opposite of Dr. Jackson, and I'm right in there with Ben about where I see my space, and it's as an educator. A lot, well, because I am an educator, but even in my art, I find that that is coming out in me, and I feel the need because we are still dealing with the same issues that our wonderful brothers and sisters and all of that. I'm sorry, I thought I muted that. Dealt with in their artwork, you know, years ago, and we're still doing it. In my work, um, I find that I'm having to bring them back to their middle school and high school civics classes. One of my pieces is Be Amended, and the image of a 5/5. Like, well, what does that mean? Other than it being a whole number
Yeah.
in response to educator, in
Yeah.
response to the 3/5 compromise. So I'm like, okay, here, let's talk about this. So
Right.
and and like you, Will, I loved it when you said that you want to offend, you want to, without actually coming to blows, you want to put it in their face, and I'm right there with you in a lot of the pieces that I do. I want you to sit back, I want you to think about it. The redlining piece that I have, think about what was done to people that look like me
Right.
purposefully.
Yep.
I want you to be offended. I want you to open your eyes and realize that you cannot deny that this country is a racist country. It was
Absolutely.
founded on that concept of racism. So, kudos to you for doing that in your art and every day. When you speak to people and so forth. I, aspire to do that as well. So I think my place is as an educator, not only out in the world, but in my family, and a lot of the art circles that I'm in are with a lot of older Jewish women,
Right.
and I'm like you, Dr. Jackson. What do Black people think about that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not the spokesperson, but let me tell you something, so I will use the opportunity when
Yeah.
you can.
Yo,
So,
Dallas, thank you, yo. Yo, all right. So something that's coming to mind. Now, I literally only had this thought today, and I don't even know what made me think of it. And I think I was kind of like prepping myself to, I guess, choose my words wisely. But I've never follow the script in my head. I always end up doing something completely different. But I remember, I guess, trying to like phrase my race conversation in my head before I spoke with y'all. And something that came to mind and made me bust out
Okay.
laughing because I'm like, this is so true. Like in my head, I was like, I don't have a personal problem with white people. I have a professional problem with them. And that's like so true for me. Cause like personally, I don't care. Like you be over there, I be over here. I'm literally only offended that they try and slight my genius in my profession. Like that's the only thing that pisses me off because it's like if my talent is currency, like you're not gonna tell me my money don't spend. Like what? And I've had so many situations where I feel as though within a lot of spaces I'm very unassuming. Or people may assume I got locks, like hoodlum, whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what people assume. Though I know I've seen people go really bug-eyed to hear me talk about art, right, and to have a perspective about art. And mainly for the reasons that I'm talking about. Maybe they may not consciously understand, though, an art form like fine art and even something like comedy, right, where you're talking about having to have some level of emotional intelligence to enjoy it. Um, and so, I always mention Dick Gregory a lot when I talk about me creating art and my experience that I have a lot with European people. Is he would talk about when he first started doing stand up, how offended that white people were that this black man was standing flat footed and making them think and laugh. You know what I'm saying? And so there's that there's something to that and being able to agitate people because it shows a level of brilliance. Like, like power doesn't mean brute force, right? Like not everything has to be done in a physicality. So if I can trigger you, I can make you think, I can heat you up, right? And I'm gonna speak in a bit of a parable here, though. My main goal with testing people's emotional intelligence is to promote this idea that as people, I like to think of us as big pots. And so when our emotions are quite literally raising our temperament, so our body's getting hot, what I'm saying? Our heart rate is increasing. There are literal parts about ourselves or our character that I feel can be proverbially cooked within our temperament and puts us in a position where when it's cooked properly and thoroughly, it's best served to other people. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like if we're constantly put in situations where our emotions are triggered and our temperament is rising, but we're constantly jumping out of the pot, if you will, we're jumping out of the situation that made us feel away without challenging it, you know what I'm saying, without poking and prodding at it, then we're always undercooked and never presentable, you know what I'm saying, or even worthy to be served to people. You know what I'm saying? That's how people get sick, right? Like, and I feel as though my experience with a lot of European people has been that, like, undercooked, right? Like, we can see that you have the emotions, your face turn red, you get angry, whatever, though they use their luxury a lot to escape, right? Either by avoidance. Um, and, my goal is making the art of Venus flytrap, right? Draw you in with the aesthetic before you know it. You're being cooked. You know what I'm saying? So, and
The crab and the lobster, they don't realize until it's too late. The frog, the crab, the lobster, they don't realize.
yeah, and so and that's my goal with the art, with these conversations, even, because it's and I say this a lot when I'm in groups of people. I always ask, like, when we're having conversations about real things, like, all right, do you want me to be cute or you want me to be critical? You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a lot of times that we can say the cute things. Um, but hopefully everybody that's in here right now has and I'm not even being funny, because I'm gonna do the same thing, has a European friend, an Asian friend, somebody who's other, right, an experience that we may not necessarily be tethered through by shared experience or things like that. um I would love for y'all to tell them about these conversations, because ideally I want more people that have accepted that it's going to be uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like, have accepted that I got this yoke on my back and I have to put myself in a position to carry it. And I'm not doing it by myself, though. Certainly within our community, I think that we and not even by our own choice or volition. I think we had to get used to being in hot and uncomfortable situations, right? To the point where, without intention, I think a lot of us have a great deal of emotional intelligence, right? Like, and so yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Dallas, about the work that we do and why it's important to agitate. So yeah, I would love for y'all to invite more people. Lena, Lena, shout out, because I've been reading your name and it's really clicking to me who you are now. I've been calling you by your government. Shame on me. But yeah.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. And I wish I wanted to join sooner. So I have a 2.5-year-old and she's up past her bedtime, but tomorrow is a family day.
Yeah.
Like when we do we always schedule a day each week to like just have fun as a family. And so she's up past her bedtime and she's like watching
Aw.
TV and she wants me to play and all these things. So but I think she's okay for right now. I we try not
Yeah.
to push a schedule every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's having fun dancing. But yes, it is
Oh.
me. And you said there's so many things that I like wanted to touch on, and I was like trying to tap into the chat. But what just caught me was when you said the luxury to escape, and that really resonated with me because I think very much so European society and people of European descent have had the luxury to escape. Like I didn't think about it literally. I mean, I think I've thought about it before, but when you just said that, it's like it was kind of triggering because people of color, people from various um, cultures and societies outside of European descent, we don't have that luxury.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? We don't have that luxury to escape from our issues, from our problems, it sits with us daily. It's with being black is something that is so multifaceted. It's not just our skin color that comes in varying shades, but it comes with such complexity from our history to how we define ourselves, to how we think of ourselves. I touched on a little bit in the chat about Black people in America having mixed heritage, which is something that's really been sitting with me recently too, that's not something that's discussed or represented a lot. It's like, oh yeah, we have African descent, but really many of us have so much more due to
Mhm.
our negative history. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we don't have the luxury to escape any of this. And
Hmm.
you said it so perfectly. I typed it, like wrote it in my notes to like keep
Thank
with
you.
me moving forward. But
Yeah.
yeah, like the luxury to escape, that's not something we can do. And I think that that is what perpetuates a big part of our problem with
Mhm.
white society in America. They continue, their privilege allows them the luxury to escape
Right.
continuously. And people of color don't have that.
Right. There's a term that's coming to mind. Yo, first off, thank you. Thank you, Lena, for sharing
Sorry,
that,
my
yo.
background. Okay, so I'm an educator as well. I'm an educator as
Yeah.
well, but my background is in Black American history. So I'm a painter as well.
Ooh.
So just to give you guys some
Okay.
insight, like that's where this is coming from. And a lot of what I do is here comes my 2-year-old. It's reflecting reflecting on a lot of what it means to be Black in America.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming. What it
All
means to
right.
be Black in America, and then using that within my work and trying to educate others on that. But I'm gonna mute myself, and I'm still listening. Just I'm
Got
gonna.
you. Yo. Thank you, Lena. What she was talking about escapism makes me think about the term drapetomania, if any of y'all ever heard it. And I believe it talks about like having this extreme desire to escape or to run away. Um, and yeah, like even though I said it, like it's something that I don't even like consider a lot how true that is. That you know, and I feel like, especially in a place like New York, where there's such a spectrum of well-being and not being well as far as mental health, and you know, it's yeah, it's really, I'm having a brain fart, so I'm gonna pivot. But
Well, I had a comment, a really quick comment though.
oh yes, yeah, please.
I just wanted to say, like, so what you brought up, where you're talking about, from a psychological standpoint, is a physiological response.
Mm,
Typically happens when we have the fight or flight response. So,
mhm.
do we fight the thing, or do we leave and walk?
Right, right.
Um, and so, yeah, what you said and what Lena said, is that white people typically have the luxury of walking away because their survival is not predicated on the fight. Our survival has on
Mm,
the fight. Like, we have to fight in order to
that's a
survive
bar.
thing. And that issue has propelled itself into what we're seeing now is a national health crisis. So a lot of
Mm,
issues, a lot of physical issues with, Black people having the highest rates of diabetes and hypertension
mm,
and all these different biomarkers of health that are negative among Black people comparatively to other populations, because we're in a consistent state of stress. Our body is always,
mhm,
and so when you're consistently, like, your body can handle small periods of being stressed, but when it's prolonged, that has certain health impacts.
mhm,
Your body is consistently under stress. Your blood pressure goes high. You're prone to cancer and diabetes and other types of health issues. And so for us, it's literally been an issue within our community, but it also an issue within our bodies, an issue with our
mhm,
relationships, like all of these different mechanisms of have declined or fallen down because of this issue of us having to consistently be in that fight mode.
mhm.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that into the chat.
Yeah, I love that point you made, just as far as and I'm paraphrasing, but just something about like their existence not being predicated on the fight. You know what I'm saying? There's this proverbial fight that we have, and that's so true. Like they good whether they fight or not. like, like they can choose to or not. Word. So word. What I will do now, since we've had a good conversation about those questions, is just share a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We got about 12 minutes left. I want to share a little bit about the painting again, right? So just some peculiar things that I'll leave you all with. Again, I'm someone from Flint, Michigan. I have drank the water, so the things that I say, I can't say that you need to take them for fact or not. But all right, so this is personal now, right? I've always been really intrigued with alchemy, right? I've always saw painting as like immediate alchemy. Like, well, I can take water and a pigment and a brush, and I can like make an intangible idea tangible for people, and it can spark conversation. And you know what I'm saying? Like that was really fascinating to me for a very long time. And I yeah, and when I create certain pieces, this piece in particular, um, for no reason that I can explain, right? Though I have to call it a gift now. It used to scare me. Though I've always had a gift of what's called clairaudience and clairvoyance. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that I can hear and see spirits. And so, in times when I'm creating work like this, um, for whatever reason, I can never, I don't know. Though the idea that I initially get to do the painting always comes from the voice of some old woman. I don't know who this woman is. I hear my grandma sometimes. It's not my grandmother. It feels a lot more ancient than that. You know what I'm saying? There was always this energy of I was about to do an old woman voice, but I was about to give you baby, you feel me? But it always tell me like you have access that I didn't at whatever time that I lived. So you better go hard, right? Because I know you can hear me. I know you can see me. I'm giving you this idea, right? So go hard. Don't care about no backlash, nothing. I'm giving you this idea and flex, right? And so I made this painting again because with different images that reserve us to these very pigeonholed spots. I At the time again, I was walking dogs when I moved to New York, so a lot of my clients were white people on the Upper West Side, right? And it's always been this running joke wherever I work. Not so much now because there aren't a lot of white people that I interact with. But when I was walking dogs, my friends would always be really blown away that I would like talk to white people like they're human. You know what I'm saying? Like what you just said that to Miss Lois, right? Because like I'm very respectable, but I don't. And I'm sure this comes from my mom and my dad. Like I don't like to play stupid with people where I'm not gonna let nobody talk at me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm super respectful. Hey, how you doing, ma'am? Hi, sir. Ooh. Though I can tell because I've been in a lot of art spaces, I can tell when somebody's wanting me to play dumb, right? Or trying to play me for dumb. And I don't like it because I don't know how to play that role. I'm super smart, and so I I wanted to make pieces again that were under the guise of a movie title because when movies like The Purge came out and people in our community were offended because there are literal or figurative purges that happen to us all the time. And the responses from a lot of media, which is mainly European people, was like, it's just a movie, it's just entertainment. Relax, sit down, right? So that was the whole premise that I wanted to approach these paintings by because I'm like, all right, as soon as I get in front of these European people, it's a movie, baby. Why you mad? And I knew I wanted that to be my bread and butter to have a last laugh. And so I did get backlash when I did these paintings of one of David Rockefeller in the headlock. I did one of Child's Play, which I'm sure we can talk about in another episode of Palatable Dialogues. But I'm bringing you up these two pieces because something really peculiar happened, right? So this is in 2017, and I am scheduled to do my show March 19th, which was a Sunday. And the day prior, my younger cousin, which is Dr. Barbara Jackson's young brother, you know what I'm saying, youngest brother, he came to New York to visit me for my show. Right. So the day before my show, I was just literally, finishing up some paintings and I planned to go thrifting to buy an outfit for my show. So long story long, the day before my show, I'm finishing up artwork. We went out and got food. My cousin makes music, so he plays some music. I play him some music. We He ended up taking a nap for a little while. Then we leave and headed out to get some more food. We was really greedy. And then to go and thrift, right? So we ended up going to a CVS just to go to somebody needed to go to an ATM, right? And so long I'm trying to make this not as long because I only got 6 minutes or so. But I ended up having a near death experience the day before my solo show, right? And the reason that it was very peculiar is that there were two paintings that seem really tethered to that experience. So I did another painting called Child's Play, where I have, I'll explain it to you all, right? So I have Jacob Rothschild. He's holding this big watermelon. So similar to the minstrel images of the big lipped black man crunching away at watermelon, right? Eating it in one swipe. I have Jacob Rothschild holding a watermelon. Most of the watermelon is gone, right? There are chunks of red flesh that are still there, but for the most part, it's mostly eaten away. And in the section that would be where the full watermelon would have existed, there's a dotted line, and the watermelon in these blank spaces or in the hollow space is represented as the map, right? So it's almost as though Jacob Rothschild is holding a watermelon rind and the earth is the watermelon that he's been eating away at, right? So I have Chucky, the Chucky doll, over his shoulder wielding a knife about to stab him in the chest, right? So I wanted to make this play on white crime, right, which is never talked about,
Right.
right? And having Chucky about to stab Jacob Rothschild, another presumably wealthy philanthropist and tycoon, right? So the day before my show, I got stabbed. And then the day of my show, when I had to finish a lot of pieces at the exhibit while I was hanging work. And so the day of my show, as I'm finishing the piece that we're talking about tonight, David Rockefeller died, right? But it's trippy if we look on Google now. My first Mandela effect moment, right? Where like if you look on Google now, it'll say he passed away the day after, right? It'll say he died March 20th of 2017. But I know it was the day of because I got a Google alert while I was painting, right? Like I got an alert on my phone, David Rockefeller. And I'm like, I'm looking at him and I'm like, yo, no way, he just died, right? So in no way am I saying I'm magical enough to kill white people through paint,
You
right?
did this.
Because hey, they would have to pay me really big bucks for that, right? That's ancient Chinese secrets. Um, but what I am saying is in the midst of me representing or attempting to reconcile misrepresentation in this painting, that for me personally, that led to some danger, right? And so in the midst of, throughout this week when y'all are thinking about what it is that you represent, um, and whether you can decide on something or whether you can't, think about whether you're not deciding on what you represent based on how dangerous it could be, right? And do it anyway. All right. Do it anyway, yo. Y'all are super awesome. There's a few minutes left, so again, I'm going to reintroduce myself, right, in the platform that I'm represented by, collaborating with tonight. So again, my name is Will Porter, originally from Flint, Michigan. I am a portraitist and an agitprop artist. That means agitation and propaganda. Represented here tonight by Black and Mayberry, the phenomenal Tanya Taylor, her husband Lee. They are an organization based out in Cali that focuses on combating racism through the arts. Please give them a follow on social media. Please stay tapped into these conversations. The next one is to be announced. And again, for those of you who have friends who may belong to different cultures, identities, what have you, please let them know about this. Yeah, y'all are awesome. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Thank you. This was
Yo, we
wonderful.
did it.
phenomenal.
Glad to participate.
Hey, I'm glad you are here. Y'all really could have been anywhere. It's not like it's like, 5 p.m. It's late. You know what I'm saying? This is adult nap time right now, and y'all are here having this conversation. So I'm super, super grateful for real.
I'm in California. It ain't that late for me.
All right. Yo, Tanya is too. You feel me? So that's why we set the time the way we did. So it's,
That's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect time.
yo, that's hilarious.
I
Yo,
look forward to connecting more with all of you.
yes. Yo, y'all have an amazing night. We'll definitely be in touch with y'all for the next one. Yo, thank y'all. Much love and represent. Feel me? Whatever that means for y'all. Represent.
Sounds
Word.
good. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Yeah. Yo, that was so awesome. Yo, Tanya, you still here? She may not be in. Yo, you still in, Tanya?
The end.